Good day. My name is Bob Long. I'm President of the Americas for Dayon. Today, thank you for joining us in today's webinar, Unlocking Flexible Identity Verification, How to Optimize Workflows with No-Code Orchestration. Joining me today is my colleague, Owen Mulligan, our TrustX project lead, and certainly a expert in all things identity, and certainly our TrustX and orchestration. And as you think about the marketplace and products that are out there in today's world, certainly has a great vault of knowledge to share today, and we're very grateful for you attending with us. In today's discussion, we're going to start off with a quick note about Dayon. We are obviously a digital identity trust company, and we really focus on bringing the human back into identity transactions. And what I mean by that is the company itself for 24 years now has really worked on developing technology, things like artificial intelligence algorithms, liveness techniques, biometric techniques, and true identity platforms to protect businesses, their customers, and their data from identity fraud. So as we think about Dayon, we really focus on those kinds of components associated with identity. We have clients that span 6 different continents across the United States today, as you can see on both the left from a geographical perspective and on the right from a name perspective. Lots of, if you will, Fortune 500 companies entrust their brands with Dayon's technology to really protect their borders of their business. As we think about that in terms of velocity, think about it in terms of hundreds of millions of transactions, billions of identities trusted on our platform globally, and have, as I said before, for 24 years now. So with that being said, hopefully that helps provide a little bit of a background, and we're going to roll into flexible identity verification, which is why we're all on this webinar today. Owen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for sharing your wealth of knowledge with this audience. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me here today, everybody. Today, I'm going to take you through some of those key elements of the orchestration platform that we have within Dayon, and how those key elements of that orchestration platform relate directly to our customers' use cases. Everything that we've built in our identity orchestration engine is very much focused on helping customers best solve their problems. So our expertise over the past 23 years is well established and founded in biometrics, in the creation and fine-tuning of our own biometric face algorithms, our own document authentication algorithms. And those really key cornerstones of Dayon's technical capabilities, our research teams and our scientists, are all now realized and presented within our orchestration model and within our orchestration platform. Today, I'd like to show you how best our customers can use those capabilities, and as I've said, exactly how to apply them to your use cases to solve your problems. So I'll share my screen in a moment, and I'll go through our TrustX platform, which is where we base our orchestration engine. TrustX, just as a bit of background, is a cloud-based platform. It represents Dayon's latest and greatest in terms of how our customers interact with our products, how they host our products. It's available in multiple different versions depending on our customers' requirements for storage. It is hosted all around the world, so we've got coverage in the US, in the EU, in APAC, and it's built from the perspective of our understanding that customer needs differ in terms of regulatory requirements and from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. It's very much at the core of what is TrustX. So bear with me for one moment and I'll share my screen if I may. Okay, great. So I can see now that everybody has access and has visibility of my TrustX platform. What I'm showing us here now is one of the demonstration tenants that we have in place for TrustX, and I'd like to talk us through a couple of use cases. I think when I speak about TrustX and when I speak to our customers about TrustX, we look at 4 key touch points. The first one is how we build identity verification journeys. we have learned from, you know, Bob had that slide of all of those customers across the world, and we've learned from our interactions and our close working relationships with those customers that the number of use cases and the number of touch points for identity verification and trust to be created is growing exponentially. What we wanted to do with TrustX was enable customers then to create journeys that would fit anywhere in their life cycle and anywhere in their customer journey. Once those are then built, how are they deployed into production environments, into test environments? How are new versions of those created? And then, of course, a really key pillar to any identity verification journey is the assessment of that journey's performance. How is it ensuring customers are identified correctly? How is it protecting against fraud? What the success rates look like and what the failure rates look like, and then what is the cause of those failure rates? Moving on from that understanding, then, what our customers want to do is modify and continually update those processes and use cases to react to new fraud vectors and to fine tune to ensure the best possible customer experience. So to get started, I'm going to move over now to my TrustX platform, and you can see that I'm inside the platform itself on the home screen. I'm going to start initially by looking at a process definition. A process definition for our customers is representative of their identity verification use case. And to me, it is a great place to start as we look at some of those ways in which we can optimize workflows quickly and easily directly from the platform. I'm going to start by creating a new process definition. The first thing that you will notice for anybody who's not seen the platform before is that we have used our expertise and our understanding of all of those geographical markets and regulatory locations to present and create a group of templates for identity verification. They represent best-in-class journeys that customers can get started with. I'll do that very thing today, and I'll start by opening up a sample process definition for the purpose of the webinar. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping and give this a name before we get started. And then I'll move down to what the key of the platform is. And this is the canvas presented to me in which I can control and orchestrate all aspects of the identity verification journey. You can see here on the left-hand side, I have my palette of activities, which I can drag and drop to make a custom journey exactly as my workflow and requirements require. Like any journey in identity verification or customer journey, it's got a start point. And you can see then as we move through, we have the UI elements, so those user interface elements that are presented to the end user, the introduction screen, the switch to mobile in which we can define if a user's on a desktop and assist them to move over to a mobile device. And of course, one of the key aspects of the platform is the capturing of consent. So in terms of the biometric processing and in terms of the document authentication processing, we operate in different markets and we understand the consent and the privacy policies and the requirements in each of those different markets. The consent activity here is configurable and controllable by customers, so they can add in custom values, custom consents, terms and conditions, and privacy policies that are not only unique to those markets that they're operating in and that use case applies to, but also customized exactly to their needs and to their company's presentation. That's a very quick and simple example of one of those key elements that we can optimize using this orchestration platform. But I'll go now and look at some of those more complex and more important aspects of the platform in terms of biometric verification. We come then to the face capture entry gateway, and this is where the journey begins for our customers, our end users, in verifying their biometric, capturing their liveness, proving that they are a real live person, that it is not somebody who is a video recording, that it's an image held in front of the camera. We can attest that it is not somebody who's wearing a mask. It's not a high quality deep fake recording. All of those pieces can be detected from our biometric liveness capability, and the aspects of it can all be controlled here. So the first piece will be the capture of the face image by the end user. And then immediately at this point, we will make a quality assessment of the image that's captured. That represents another important part of TrustX, and that's the focus that we have placed on reducing exceptions. So the reduction of exceptions, helping customers when something doesn't go right on the first attempt, is what drives our very high verification rates and our high completion rates for our customers. By presenting the feedback directly to the end user at the point of capture, we can say, for example, in this case, the image has not met the quality requirements for verification. And then we can see in this journey, we can prompt the end user to recapture their face image. Something as simple as that, by providing contextually relevant feedback at the point of capture, by providing the option for the end user to recapture, can have a big effect downstream when it comes to those verification numbers and when it comes to reducing the manual intervention that's required by our customers. That administrative overhead that all customers want to keep to a minimum, so their operatives and their employees can spend their time working on the really key pieces they should be focusing on: detecting high-level fraud, ensuring that trusted customers are onboarded correctly. After the end user passes that face quality assessment, we move then to the biometric algorithm. And we can see here how quickly and easily we can control how the user interacts with this algorithm. For example, on the right-hand side, we can see the parameters. And here, I can simply adjust, change, and interact with these parameters to control what that end user, what that customer sees on the front end. So for example, how many attempts would I like to give a user to pass the liveness assessment can simply and easily be adjusted here. And then for situations where our customers might have a higher regulatory requirement or might have a higher risk market, we can actually control the threshold for success within the algorithm itself, allowing our customers to say, for this particular use case and this process that I'm creating, I would like to set a higher bar for success for the individuals undertaking the process, and quickly and easily changing that value here within the orchestration layer has the effect on the front end experience for that end user. So to move away from the orchestration layer for a moment, we can see how what previously was code changes, what previously required development effort for our customers, and what previously would have to go into a planning cycle, development, QA, QC test, and into production, can now be much more quickly and easily controlled and configured here in the platform. As we pass then through the biometric element, we then see how we can help our customers capture and reuse the biometric that they're getting from the end user and customer at the point of registration. So we can generate a template of the face that's been captured, and that template can be used in the identity continuity journey for that customer at a later stage. So for example, they could capture another liveness at a later stage and use that to validate a higher value transaction. And what this activity shows here is how easy it is for our customers to reuse the biometrics captured during identity verification on onboarding, and throughout that customer's life cycle drive easier trust creation at the different point and at different interactions. I'll then move through this process definition, and I'll get to a key piece of any identity verification flow, and that's document authentication. Document authentication is one that requires huge expertise to implement well across the globe. And I think it's well represented here as to how well Dayon understands the different requirements for document verification in different markets and different jurisdictions. Using TrustX, our customers can interact, control, and configure and define exactly what is acceptable to them and what they deem acceptable as identity documents from their customers. So you can see here, I can set which countries I would like to allow identity documents from. I can default to a specific country. In this case, we have the default country being Spain. I can quickly, easily change that to Ireland just by typing and adjusting. And I can go as far as to actually control the document values that are presented in the front end and allow for full configuration and control of those user interface aspects right here from the platform. For example, I can click to remove an option. I can adjust any of the values, and I can have a really custom selection that meets our use case, the customer's use case, without any code changes or without any overhead as such. Again, and much like what we saw in terms of face capture, we move to the image capture for the document, and we make a quality assessment of the image that's been captured. This is even more important than it is at the point of face capture, because we need a high quality image without glare and without blur to be able to say to an end user, we're happy with the image that we have received from you, and we're happy that we're going to be able to verify its authenticity to a very high degree. So again, much like it was with face, making this quality assessment at the point of capture drives success rates. It enables us to give contextually relevant feedback to customers at the point of capture, and that leads to higher verification, higher success outcomes in terms of verification, and less manual review work for our customers. Again, you can see that route taken by end users in the case where a document image does not meet the quality standards. In terms of document authenticity, what we see at Dayon and what our research scientists work on a daily basis is the ever-growing fraud vectors available to bad actors in terms of document presentation. We have defined and are continually refining a set of algorithms to protect against document fraud. And again, those are presented right here within the platform and can be controlled and configured based on the document type and based on the use case. The first of those elements is screen replay detection. We can tell if a document is a real live document that's being captured. We can tell if it's displayed on a desktop screen, on a mobile screen. It's a very popular mode of acquiring an altered document or a digitally manipulated document for that document to be displayed on screen. And therefore, screen replay detection does a really great job to be able to prove that it is a real live document that the customer has in their possession at the point of onboarding. The next two then are closely linked: black and white copy detection and color copy detection. Of course, this, as per the name, describes where we can see and tell if a document is a photocopy or an image that has been printed. And lastly, in the case of these four algorithms, we have photo substitution detection. Photo substitution detection is when a bad actor or a fraudster will manipulate either manually or digitally the image that's held within an identity document and alter that in terms of trying to trick the biometric liveness and trying to trick the comparison between the face captured at onboarding and the face that's present on the document. So with those algorithms in place, we can see how well protected we are against fraud vectors and how easily they can be controlled and configured based on the use case, based on the document type that we're collecting, and based on the market in which our customers are operating. Much like the biometric liveness, we can change the threshold, we can control how the number of attempts end users get, and we can have that level of interaction and control right here from the platform. All of those results and all of the outcomes of all of the checks that take place are fused together to ensure the highest possible efficacy when it comes to the verification outcome. And at that point, it offers a great segue for me to discuss another pillar of TrustX, and that pillar is its extensibility. As I mentioned earlier, the platform itself is a product of all of our customers' feedback and our close working relationships with those customers. And one piece that was key in our design was extensibility of the platform and empowering our customers to build in those extensions that they need for their identity verification journeys. So whether that be to a proprietary database that our customer holds, such as a list of their existing customers, whether that be to a third-party database, such as an established identity provider, such as DataZoo, in which we can check multiple different databases depending on jurisdictions, such as electoral roll, property roll, credit register, those types of pieces. Those can be built quickly and easily into TrustX using our cloud function paradigm. So if I come over to my palette on the left-hand side, you can see that I can invoke a cloud function activity anywhere within a process simply by dragging and dropping and then joining that into the relevant process. And this cloud function is a Python script that can be created, controlled, and configured by our customers. And we can see here, as I interact with the activity, I can choose from the list of existing cloud functions within this tenant. You can see I have one here created for a DataZoo. And simply selecting that function name and value will invoke that within this process definition. So what that might look like is we would like to check the information that we have collected from the identity document. We would like to take the name, the surname, the address, the date of birth, and we would like to pass that to DataZoo for third-party database checks, and then retrieve the responses and make decisions downstream in this process based off those outcomes. So we might say that we're happy to onboard a customer fully as that third-party database check would meet the NIST IAL level 2 standard by having the face capture, the identity document capture, and also the validation to a third-party database. It meets that standard, and therefore we may be happy to onboard that particular customer and allow them to continue their registration journey. So it's a sample there of how extensibility can help meet the regulatory requirements, help and quickly and easily interact with third-party databases, third-party services, and also can be used to create custom integrations to your own proprietary databases and to your own existing processes that a customer may arrive from or may journey to. It's a very key element of the platform that our customers have been using extensively since we've launched TrustX. Now, I'll pause there for a moment and I'll think about how, as a customer, I've now made changes and configuration control pieces to my particular process definition. And I'd like to look at then how this is configured, or when it is configured, how this is saved and deployed into my test environment for interaction, either initial testing or ultimately how it's deployed to production. I can also do this right here from TrustX. I can click to save and deploy, and you can see immediately my process definition has been created and is available to me to interact with from the platform. I think this, as I interact with it, I can see that I have a version created. We support multiple versions of these process definitions, and that's really important in terms of optimizing workflows. That's a really key aspect in terms of how we optimize workflows, because it allows our customers to make small changes, to create a new version aligned with that small change, and then to assess the impact of that change on that particular process definition. So for example, if we have had version 1 here, we change the liveness threshold to react to growing risk in a specific market, we can make that change and create a new version of that process definition with the associated liveness threshold change. You can see that I will adjust the threshold, save and deploy it. And immediately then within our platform, we now have 2 versions, one with the original threshold and one with the adjusted. In terms of how our customers use TrustX, this is a very important demonstration. It enables you to perform what is ultimately an A/B test. Maybe you direct your testing towards version 2, maybe you direct a subset of customers towards version 2. And that type of flexibility, enabling you to make those quick changes, be proactive rather than extremely reactive to fraud, really sets it apart and shows how we can optimize those workflows with the orchestration capability. As everybody wants to know then, we want to move this from a created process into one that customers can interact with. And of course, we usually do this programmatically, but for the purposes of the demo, I'll create a new token manually here. You can see quickly and easily I can control all sorts of aspects of the token. I can control its use. I can put a time limit, a count limit on it, or I can make it unlimited. And I can also attach additional parameters, which can also be custom parameters, which might be your unique customer reference number, or any other additional custom parameter that a customer would like to define. Again, I'll create the token here. I have a QR code for ease of test, but in this case, I'm going to open the token URL. And as soon as I do open the token URL, we now have that realized process definition available via redirect. You can see a new window has opened here, and I'm taking the role of that end user. I now have a method to verify my identity, handling the switch to my mobile device, capturing my consent, capturing my selfie, and my document verification. On this screen here, we see the basic out-of-the-box look, feel, and theme to our end user flow. Everything that we present here can be controlled and configured by our customers. So orchestration extends past those key biometric and document authentication elements. It also allows for theming, control of the logo, the colors, the wording, the buttons, all those pieces that you want to fit within your design system and within your design patterns that you've set out within a native application, within a web application, wherever you may be onboarding customers. That's an important aspect as well to mention at this point. What I'm showing here is a web application that opens in a desktop browser and routes to a mobile browser. But of course, we understand customers would like to deploy in multiple different mediums. So for that reason, we support SDK deployment within native apps. We just support iframes, so you can sit the experience within your existing browser flow. And there's multiple mediums in which we can deploy, and all of those are as quick and easy to use as what I've displayed here on screen. I'll move on then just to lastly mention, of course, that the application and the end user process is available in multiple languages, and we can support any other language that our customers require. And we can get a sense of what this will look and feel like for the end user as they move through the process. I'm prompted to continue on my phone, and then I scan the QR code, and then I'll move over to my mobile device. At this point, then I'll navigate to the back office again, and we can then look and see and interact with some of the other key aspects. I mentioned extensibility, and I gave a short demonstration of cloud functions, but it's also important to mention what we facilitate in the platform via our integration hub. We allow our customers to create custom pages for their processes. I think what I have seen from interacting with customers, the most common application of this custom form is in terms of presenting the information OCR'd from a document. So that's the information that's extracted from the identity document, presenting that for the end user's review. And I can do that and facilitate that using a custom form. So if we think about that end user journey, they scan their identity document, we extract the information from it, and it's very popular for our customers to then use that extracted information, present that on a custom form within the flow, and ask the end user, their customer, to verify that information, to say, yes, this is correct. I agree that I'm providing this name, this address, these this metadata, these identifiable characteristics and PII. So that can also be controlled and configured here from the platform with a simple mechanism that's baked in to TrustX at this point. Past custom forms, then we can allow you to have your own UI. That's your own fully realized user interface as the presentation layer of TrustX, right down to the style sheet level, right down to controlling the HTML. We can facilitate that for customers as required. And also, as a part of many identity verification journeys, we can handle emails being sent. And of course, a key is webhooks, in which customers can invoke webhooks to find out the status of a process, the outcome, where a customer is in the particular journey. As we go down through the left-hand navigation, then you can see some of the other key aspects of the platform. And I'll mention here OpenID Connect. At this point, we have full support for OpenID Connect within TrustX. We actually have a Fortune 100 company who's going to be deploying TrustX using the OpenID Connect protocol. And in doing so, they have full control over the scope that they're retrieving. They can define exactly what that token is providing them with, and they can have multiple different versions of that OpenID Connect token and scope per use case, per product, per process definition, and they can align that to their exact requirements, and all in a simple fashion that follows that OIDC protocol. We'll also, OpenID Connect gives a very good example of how TrustX can benefit our customers by continually providing the updates in terms of the algorithms, in terms of alignment with the standards, in terms of new document authentication methods, new protections against biometric liveness fraud vectors such as emulators or virtual machines. As we develop, as our research scientists develop and release those capabilities, they are directly pushed to TrustX and become available for our customers, much like any other new functionality in the platform. I'm going to pause there and we can open for any other discussion.
Yeah, Owen, I have a few questions that have come in through today's presentation, so thank you very much for walking us through that. I'm going to start with two rather, I guess, operational kind of questions. So is a company would look to add a new document type to their orchestration flow. What is the timing? How long does that take? What would that look like? And then I'll add on my own personal comment of if I wanted to also look at any type of adding a third-party database, kind of in that same vein. What is the time frame for doing those kinds of tactical items associated with the workflow?
Yeah, in terms of the new identity document, that's something that we see all of the time from all of our customers across each of the jurisdictions. It's a very popular request. Of course, jurisdictions, countries are issuing and updating new document types all the time. And typically what that looks like is we will get a sample number of images of that new identity document. And once we get a sufficient number of sample images, we can then, via machine learning, update our algorithms to recognize that document, to classify it, and then to validate it, as we do with the existing documents that we support today. In terms of the question about third-party databases can be exactly as our customers require. They can be implemented within TrustX using that cloud function model that I gave a short demonstration of. It's really important, and it's great to be able to say, I should have covered it in more detail, but that cloud function also allows for complex interpretations of the response that you're getting from third parties. So maybe you're using a third-party database that you're checking multiple different databases, the electoral roll, the property register, the credit register, and you want to get an overall sense and an overall score outcome from each of those different databases. That interpretation, that logic can all be handled within the cloud function as well. So for example, we say 80% of the checks that we made in those databases were positive. Therefore, we deem this check a pass, and that logic can be baked into the cloud function and used and utilized in the process definition.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you. How quickly do these changes? So you showed it in your demonstration, going to a kind of a test environment, right? How quickly then can I roll that into production?
So it's very much based on the steps that our customers would like to take. We see different applications and different approaches to how quickly we can get something to production. But I think, like any software development lifecycle, each of our customers will have their own defined process, and TrustX can align to that process. So a typical approach would be that we make changes in a test or in a dev environment. We move those from the development environment to a test environment, and then those are progressed maybe to preview, which is a replica of production. And once the tests have passed, whether they be automated or manual tests, our customers then promote that into production by changing the process definition version that's used in production. So that timeline can fit with what our customers would like, and it will fit with their established software development lifecycle they have in their organization.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question, we're going to go down everyone's favorite compliance trail. How does orchestration help in maintaining audit trails and ensuring that identity processes meet different industry standards? And we all know that depending upon the region for which you're listening today, everyone's going to have a different industry standard. So I think it's a very fair question. But how does it help maintain audit trails? That'd be, I think, the fair way to approach this.
Of course, and that's much like the extensibility of the platform that I mentioned, the importance of audit trails, the importance of compliance oversight, and the importance of the establishment of that identity, but the easy interaction with how it was established, when it was established, and all of those questions that an audit or compliance operative might have can be facilitated directly from the TrustX platform too. So everything that's captured during the identity verification process is stored within TrustX. Our customers get to define exactly how long that storage process is. So that's an example of how they can meet different regulatory requirements across different jurisdictions. They can define if it needs to be 90 days, if it needs to be 90 years in particular markets. That can be controlled and configured from the platform itself. And then the oversight is available in multiple different ways. Our APIs allow for the extraction of anything that's collected from an end user, the metadata, the document images, that those can be extracted and stored for audit in a customer's servers, or they can be maintained and persisted within TrustX. And multiple roles can be used within that back office to provide certain administrators, certain operatives with access to certain things. So for example, we have a view of the back office that I was in there that is compliance specific, and it allows them to interact with any of the information that's been captured historically by any user, and they can search, access, and retrieve that information immediately.
Okay, and yeah, thank you for that. And I would say that's a very commonly asked question, I would say, amongst most of our client presentations. Next question is going down we'll call it the fraud vein. What role does orchestration play in enabling real-time threat detection and response? Can you outline that or put a framework for us on that?
Of course, yeah. And within TrustX, the development of the process definition is very closely attached and very closely linked with the ongoing assessment of the process. So when you've defined your use case, and when our customers have defined their use case and launched it in production, our platform TrustX also handles the assessment and the ongoing visibility of that. Our reporting and metrics suite allows you to see what is happening at a macro level for all of the customers that are onboarding. So you might, using a view like that, detect fraud for a particular document type. As an example, you might detect fraud in a particular document type from a certain jurisdiction. And immediately, quickly, and easily, you can create a new process definition version and maybe change or alter your acceptable documents to remove that document type. So maybe it's a low security document and you can say, we see a lot of fraud associated to this particular identity document. We are now no longer happy to accept it, and creating a new process definition, removing that document as an option, as an acceptable document, can be changed from the platform. And it's an example of how you can quickly and easily react, and be relatively proactive when it comes to the vectors that you're seeing. That also as well leads to a point we discussed earlier as to how TrustX and orchestration allows customers to benefit from the new algorithms that we are continually developing within Dayon, whether they be face or document focused. As we develop and test and release them, they immediately become available to our customers within TrustX.
Okay, we're gonna, in the interest of time, we have about 30 seconds left, so we're gonna play game show host. So Owen Mulligan, share with me, in 30 seconds, any last minute thoughts around operational and technical efficiencies with TrustX?
Yes, thank you. I enjoy taking part in the game show. So I would go back to those 4 pillars that I mentioned there. Every customer of ours and every customer in the world of creating trust and identity verification, it has a focus on those 4 areas: how they build for their use cases, how they deploy those use cases, once those use cases are live, how they assess their efficiency and their effectiveness. And then once they understand that, how then they modify and manage those on an ongoing basis. So the build, the deployment, the assessment, and the modification are those key pieces, and how we optimize for those key pieces within orchestration.
Excellent. Thank you, Owen. And thank you all for joining us today on today's webinar, Unlocking Flexible IDV. We hope you found it a valuable use of your time, and please let us know how we can be a resource to you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, everyone.